welcome to The Point. What is absolutely amazing and unique about you? It's a heck of a question you might ask when you look in the mirror. Are you the type of person that looks in the mirror and finds all your flaws and defects and beats yourself up? Or are you the type of person that looks in the mirror and gives yourself encouraging words? Are you the type of person that looks in the mirror and notices the nice things, notices the good that you put out into the world? Are you edifying to your own self? It's a great thing to be critical for ourselves in the spirit of receiving feedback well, but not in the sense of judgment. Thinking about the idea of acceptance and accepting the results that we get in our life and finding a general sense of acceptance can be a tricky navigation as far as thinking through how our minds are working and what we're presupposing and putting into the universe. So the big question stays, what is absolutely unique and special and wonderful about you? You know that it's an amazing, miraculous process that brings any one of you here. If you are here and you were born and you were created, amazing things needed to happen for all the timing. If you're sitting down and watching this on YouTube, or if you're driving down the road and listening to this on a podcast, or if you're maybe walking through a store and listening in one ear, whatever it is, the chances of you being in this spot where you are standing right now or sitting right now is a very rare occurrence, just the fact that you're here. So every single person, you included, are absolutely unique and special. Now, as a Clifton Strengths coach, and as really anyone can read this, of course, but I've had experience with a lot of people and helping them through their strengths and helping people understand their strengths. Now, there's a statistic that says that in order to have the same top 5 in the same order, the same first 5 strengths in the same order, it's 1 in 1.33 million chance. That's the ratio. 1 in every 1.33 million have the same top 5 in the same order. Now, that's better than 1 in a million. That's a pretty good number. And it scientifically proves that you are rare and you are special and you're wonderfully made. And the question becomes, if you think about what it is that makes you unique and special, it might be an assessment like taking the strengths. I'll encourage you that if you do the Clifton Strengths, that it's not a study of your personality. It's a science of what makes you successful. What's the easiest path for you to find success? What's the easiest path for you to find a way to achieve or attain whatever it is that you want? It's a language that wraps around, or a linguistics that wraps around verbiage that helps you communicate what's special about you to someone else in that way. And it's not, and you may attach it to your personality, but the science is not a personality science. It's a strengths science of successful people in how you choose to succeed and how you show up and how you work towards succeeding or move towards getting something done that you want to get done. Now, there are also personality things that might be really great about you. There's also perspectives. Your strengths, your gifts, your way of processing, your experiences, the filters that you use in thinking through things gives you a unique perspective to things. How often do you sit and give feedback or talk with others and just go along with what other people are saying to just not have any resistance in the world or anything else? That's a really solid strategy if you're trying to just get along and focus on the good things, focus on what you can agree with, which is really important to do if we're trying to learn to get along, or if we're just practicing being positive and encouraging for ourselves and others. Notice on what we want to repeat. Notice on what we want to grow. So find those common ground with the people that we choose to associate with is fantastic. There's a line, though, where if we leave ourselves behind, if we don't contribute with our unique perspective, then the best version of ourselves doesn't get to show up and benefit others. So it's important to gain, for that line of thinking, it's important for you to gain a belief system that says that the world's a better place, that the world is a much better place if you're interjecting your best self into it. If you're sharing your perspective from a heartfelt, kind, compassionate place, if that, or a useful, direct place, it's not going to be the same if you don't interject yourself in the best way possible that you can find. So perspective can be really, really unique and important. Your ability to regulate specific emotions. Have you ever noticed that some friends of yours or even yourself are really have no problem regulating some emotions, and then you'll run across somebody where something happens and they just flip out and it seems simple to you, but to them it really affected them emotionally? Everyone has. You have a unique pattern of emotional resilience and regulation, and how and what you will be affected by. Then there's the expression of emotion, unique ability to express emotion, and that comes based on perspective, how you would communicate, how you're feeling, thinking, where you're going, what you're doing, the understanding you might find in others, the way you embrace compassion or empathy and trying to gain understanding in others. All these things make you extremely special and unique in how you approach the world. So why bring that? Now, over the next few weeks, you're going to have an opportunity to think through ways of developing your gifts and talents towards what you want. And then we're going to go through a session where you're going to get to learn and think more about how to protect yourself from doubt and the negative self-talk and judgment of things. So today we're going to stick with this idea of really considering what is amazing and special about you, especially in this theme of springtime and what's new and what do you want to continue moving forward with that you've set goals for, and what is it that you might go ahead and want to drop off, that maybe you've picked up something in the beginning of this year or in the transition from last year to this year that you just want to drop off and be done with. It's springtime's just a great other time to move forward. If we break it down into quarters and do a quick evaluation of our highest overarching goal and making an adjustment to our daily behaviors that help us get where we're going, or that really determine that we get where we're going. And that brings me back down to this idea of acceptance and considering what's really special about us and considering what we want, and not what we want from a selfish, self-centered standpoint of I want this and I better get it. This is really about what God's put in your heart to desire. What types of things do you want to be known for? And sometimes these are ways of being that you're considering more than they are an actual physical thing that you want, but it could also be a lifestyle. It could also be a way of traveling. Whatever it is that's been put in your heart, it may be a way of giving. It might be a way of taking care of yourself. It might be in your heart that you perform really well and are stimulated and grow creatively so that you can offer more to the world when you do spa days and really take care of yourself in a pampering sort of way. Whatever it is that's been put on your heart, that's the idea, is to allow ourselves those things. So, because whatever's been put in our heart, or in our true desire, that's one way to find what you're meant to be doing. And there's a lot of different walks of ways of thinking about finding out what that is. But the first thing that you have to do is give yourself permission. The first thing that you have to do is allow yourself to win. Allow yourself to succeed, to get to even want something, and then work towards getting it, and then receive and have what you want. It's really critical that you listen and pay attention if you're feeling resistance towards something. I was sitting in a car the other day and heard a teenager talk about someone who's filthy rich. And I immediately perked up, and I didn't correct or direct at the time. I'd really allowed this person to express themselves and say what they needed to say. But what I did for myself was I immediately started to reframe that in my mind. So if you notice that you're hearing certain words and certain things that are triggering, filthy rich, why would you ever want a negative connotation towards having abundance, a wealth, the ability to pay your rent or your mortgage or multiple mortgages or a car payment or pay cash for a car or whatever it is? Why is it have to have a connotation towards it of a judgment of filthy or clean or anything else? Having these types of attachments. So immediately we can go back and detach that and say, man, when did I decide that would be bothersome? When did I decide that would be something that got in my way? And I eventually did say, somebody asked me a question in regards to that comment that was made, and I turned the conversation back around and said, well, I understand completely what she was saying, and have a great deal of compassion and understanding for the mindset, but I know there are some people that really are what we might call filthy rich. And I immediately framed this idea of what she was saying at the time was talking about someone that was not doing good things with the resources that they had. It didn't even have to do with money as much as it did that they weren't doing positive things in the world with the resources they had. If anything, they were doing things that were hurting others. And didn't know all the details, but it was the story they were telling. And I immediately detached those two things from each other. So when you hear something like that, you can detach them and say, whoa, I want to be gloriously abundant and thriving and able to do whatever I need to fulfill the dreams and visions that are put in me. And I embrace this glorious abundance and just completely turn around the thought process of what that looks like, because rich can mean a lot of things to you. Filthy can mean a lot of things to you. Gloriously abundant can mean a lot of things. All these words can mean things to you. The trick or the idea is for you to make a decision and a choice of what it's going to mean for you, so that when you hear something that doesn't resonate well, you're automatically programming some new ideas into your mind where you're shifting what you're considering about it and not taking it on and having it become a limiting factor. Because if we buy into these ideas, and I'm not going to say it again, so I don't want to put that out there again for you to hear. But if you hear something like that again and you absorb it and connect it, it becomes a pretty good reason not to have abundance. Because if you attach rich to having money, or attach rich to having resources, or having a great house to live in, or whatever you associate with rich, maybe it's the ability to travel or do something you otherwise couldn't do. Then that's how you're choosing to associate that. You can make a choice on how to associate that word and say what it means to you. And if you connect a negative word to it, then what you've done is you've created a reason unconsciously for yourself not to become that. And the two become a lateral thing that connect to each other, and you don't want to be either one, so you ignore both. And that can stop you from moving forward. Now, that's a small example of something that works in a bigger format if we're not careful. So one of the things that you can do in considering what makes you special and unique and amazing is to really manage and think about what is it that's great about you and how do you use the right words to be that positive, edifying person to yourself. Looking in the mirror and finding the good things and being encouraging to yourself. When you're feeling a sense of overwhelm and a sense of defeat or anything like that, stopping, pausing, and choosing faithful words and positive words of, nope, my mind is going off right now because I'm feeling low on resources. I'm needing some rest. I would benefit from some breathing and meditating or whatever it is. Taking the time to take care of yourself so that you can maintain a positive emotional frame, a resourceful emotional frame becomes really important. Now, getting deeper into what's amazing about you, there's some questions you can ask. In designing your strengths, we have worksheets where you can work through some of this, and you can actually print them and give them to friends and family and ask people closest to you what they think. And some of them make really easy worksheets where they can just circle things. But think about, what would you love to do in a dream job, and and think about what that says about what makes you happy and what gives you pleasure or gets you excited, right? Because that can speak to what your strengths are. Sit and think about when was a time that you felt so amazingly fulfilled in whatever it was you were doing. When you think through and come to some conclusions around, man, I remember feeling really solid then. I was in flow. I was feeling super confident. And that was absolutely amazing. Then take a minute to journal and note what it was you were doing, what it was you were thinking, what made that feel great. Because there's also strengths. There's something really positive about you that's unique about you that you can find through doing that. You can ask the exact same question to other people. When was a time you thought that I appeared to be most fulfilled? A time you saw me and I was excited and happy. A number of years ago, somebody shared with me, they said, you really need to do these strengths things more often. And I didn't do it as my main way of doing things, which is much more prominent today than it was then. And it's always been prominent in my opinion. But their feedback to me was, when you start talking about strengths, you light up in a way that's energetic, it's attractive, it's fun. Like, you just light up. And I spent some time thinking on that and just contemplating what that's really all about. And the truth is, I found something that I love. And identifying and uncovering these unique sequences of things that work in you, and really working with you to help you aim different nuances of these things towards what you want, towards a positive good, and then finding the things along the way that are the barbs and the snags that might slow us down, and clearing them and moving them out of the way quickly. I get so fired up and fulfilled that it really is what I love. But not only was it what I loved, but that's where some of my strengths are. Those are some of the things that I'm naturally good at. Those things are easy for me. So another good question you can ask yourself is, what frustrates you that other people don't understand? Because often, if you understand something, you're like, I don't know why people don't just get this. It's probably because something that's natural and easy for you, you may not have considered that it's a gift. It's special. Other people aren't going to understand it as readily or quickly as you if it's not their strength. So not assuming or judging others if they don't understand it, but maybe considering that as something that it's a gift that you have. And then you can actually take a cue that it might be time to step into some form of leadership in a way of helping someone else learn something that you think is basic. Because that's another way that you can find something that's just special and unique about you. So there's much more to this topic that goes deeper and farther. It's such a blessing to meet amazing people. There are people that do things in the world that I would never want to do. And they do such a beautiful, amazing job being of service in the community. And it wouldn't be my cup of tea. It would not be something that I wanted. I wouldn't jive with it at all. It's not something I'd want to do, but I watch them feel fulfilled and I find a common ground to relate on. So if you love being of service or if you don't, there's something amazing about you and what that means. And it doesn't mean you can or cannot do anything. That's one of the other things that we want to lay down today. I want to lay down today for you that you get to really hear and think about is that your strengths don't determine what you should do. Your strengths determine how you might move forward in doing what you want to do. That's how we have people that become things that otherwise wouldn't have made sense for them. People become doctors that teachers have said you could never do. Les Brown became a public speaker, and his teachers, I don't remember all the exact details, but he had a teacher that told him, you're never going to amount to anything, and you're never going to be able to do what you want to do. And so there's people that prove others wrong, prove experts wrong all the time because they learn how to lean into, how to drive the best part of themselves towards what they want. So even when the evidence looks like you can't do it, when you find your strengths and your way of moving forward that's best and easiest for you, a lot of things that you thought might not have been possible come back on the table. When we move into different organizations, we're moving into and working with a lot of health system organizations, and as we go into healthcare is really in the process of making a lot of change. Has been for years, but there's a lot of exciting change happening in healthcare, and particularly in the supply chain side of healthcare. And I'm deploying a lot of resources into those areas to help teams, supply chain teams and accounting teams, and become experts in change mastery, right? Really master change. And that's one of the things that we find is that when we get everyone aligned in what they're great at and what they know the organization is great at, when they really start focusing on those things and how to leverage those things, how many goals come back on the table that the team never thought would be possible. So think about, what are some things that you thought weren't possible for you? Maybe it's springtime. You've had a couple months of this year of moving forward. There might be a few things that you're considering taking off the table that you don't want to accomplish anymore this year. What if that didn't need it? What if you could put them right back on there? What would happen if you could close the year getting everything you wanted done, accomplished, and more? Well, by aiming your strengths, by looking at what's working and leveraging all of the positive and the good, that's what we find happens. Goals come back on the table that were being put aside previously. And then finding the resources and the people to help move things forward becomes exciting and fun again because everyone has a common ground and a way of moving forward that acknowledges everyone's values and strengths. So we end up learning what all the different individual values are. You'll hear it said here often that change is change, no matter with an individual, a team, a group, a company, an organization. Change is change. There's many parts. So if it's an individual, if you're working on changing, there's parts of you that want to change and there's parts of you that don't. The key is to acknowledge and understand what those parts are valuing. What are those different thought processes valuing? And find the alignment and then move forward from there. And there's so many great ways to do that. Same thing works in an organization or a team or a group or even different groups. of an organization that need to value things differently. So, because that's how you keep checks and balances. Even with yourself, you keep checks and balances by managing competing priorities and understanding the importance of both priorities, and then using that to make decisions. And continuing to make decisions and practice your intuition and listen for the best way to move forward until you become so good, until you're so amazingly natural at moving forward. However, mostly you might have found that you've automated more doubt and more reason to back up and not take action, and some fear because you don't want to redo mistakes that you might have done in the past. You get to throw all that out the window if you start really focusing on strengths in a powerful way, because you will be making different decisions based on different criteria and really leveraging and looking at what the values are of those different processes so that you can find alignment to move forward. So it's exciting to be here with you. It is some great stories have come out of the last few months of podcasts, some great encouragements. Thank you so much. Those of you that have been encouraging and kind about a lot of the messaging that we've been putting out there, especially the story of kind of shifting an old family story from a patriarchal view to a matriarchal view and how that could impact the world. That your feedback has been so valuable, and you sharing what your thoughts are openly have made a big difference. The feedback's been phenomenal, and I thank you. Wherever you are today, in your mindset with your own self-talk and moving forward, you will have a couple of weeks here of really being able to evaluate more about the positive and the good of you. And we look forward to being of service. Drop any note you want of something you want to talk about, hear about, or contribute on, and I'll bring it up and we'll share some more. So have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. The greatest compliment you could give me is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all your friends. So please, if you're on Spotify, iHeart, or iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Make sure to tag me. I love hearing from you, the listeners of this show. The links for all my social and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage with me in anything related to my coaching, consulting, speaking, or programs, please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.